Parables.
Parables. Okay, which parables have we talked about?
Jesus' parable.
Lost coin and the lost sheep. What else? The lost son. Also known as the prodigal son. Good. Lost coin, lost sheep, lost son.
Jesus!
The parable of
The unmerciful servant. Good. So last week we talked about the parable of the unmerciful servant, right? Matt talked about forgiveness and letting go of the rocks or the burdens that we carry, right? The hatred that we carry for some people. Earlier we talked about the lost sheep and also the lost coin. And we learned that Jesus values each and every one of us, right? And he pursues us and he seeks us out. And we learned in the parable of the lost son, also known as the prodigal son, that the Father is waiting for us with open arms. And he celebrates when his son returns, right? And from the perspective of the younger brother, the one who ran away, we ask, what are we wasting in search of something better? And sometimes in my breakout group, we talked about, do we wish that we could go out and be reckless sometimes and have a broken story instead of feeling like we're stuck in the church, for those of us who have grown up in the church. And the last thing we talked about was the older brother, and he was really angry, right? Do we get angry sometimes at stories like that? And what riches do we have that the Father is right now sharing with us that we're blind to? And so today we're going to look at a fourth parable. It's one that most of you are probably familiar with, and we are going to watch a quick little video.
The sun always shone on the mountains of the people. The wind and the rains never came. To call the place beautiful, no one would quibble, though hard on the feet they'd exclaim. But high in those hills, past the rocks and the rubble, so high that the clouds were below, sat two tiny towns that were nothing but trouble. As you listen, you'll see that it's so. Now, the town to the west that thought it was best bore the name Flibberaloo, where the women and men since 1710 have worn on their heads one large shoe. Now in town number 2, one big shoe wouldn't do, so the people of Jibberty Lot would look down and bellow at shoe-headed fellows and place on their own heads a pot.
Mine's fitting more of a kettle.
For days without end, these two neighbors would bicker as to whose headgear was best, and the shoes and the pots would fly ever thicker, from morning to night without rest. Not all of the people who lived in these cities were angry and bitter and vile. A few would write poems and sing happy ditties and greet all their friends with a smile. One Flibian fellow who hated to fight tried hard not to act like a monster. While pots crashed around him from morning till night, he'd just play with his pet wind-up lobster. They kept to themselves and they'd talk and they'd talk. Until one day he said,
Hey, let's go for a walk. I'm tired of laying around like a squid. I want to go out there.
so that's what he did. The shoe-headed boy and his blue plastic friend walked out of their town and began to descend to the dark, rocky valley between the two cities, away from his friends and their light-hearted ditties. Ba-la-la, ba-la-la.
Hey, this is swell.
He said.
Gosh, this is fun. It's great that my lobster can get out and run.
But neither the toy nor the boy with the shoe could see the disaster about to ensue. For up in the rocks, hidden just out of sight, were 6 beady eyes filled with anger and spite. 6 beady eyes watched our hero meander, 2 shifty crooks and their ruthless commander. Oh, look what good fortune, the nasty one said. Here comes the poor fool with a shoe on his head.
I bet he's got money. I bet he's got gold or maybe some jewelry he'd like us to hold.
Whatever the booty, I think I could stand it. Why, that's what I live for. That's why I'm a bandit. And then they attacked him from under their rock. First they knocked off his shoe, then they knocked off his sock. But the thing they did next was extremely unfunny. Why, they shook him so hard that he dropped his milk money.
Hey!
He protested.
I don't like your ilk. How will I go strong if I don't drink my milk?
But they didn't care. They accomplished their goal. So they put our friend down, stuck his head in a hole, and walked off with his money, every last nickel. Then yelled back as they left.
See you around, silly pickle. I'm a cucumber.
Then he said with a moan,
Well, I guess I'm alone.
but this was a loneliness he'd never known. His friends were far off and his lobster was missing. The sound he could hear was just the wind hissing.
Hello? Hello?
Things looked pretty grim for our Flibian buddy, his head in a hole, his shoe bent and muddy. But then, were those footsteps? Oh, could it be true? Along came the mayor of Flibberoloo. Of anyone, surely he'd help the poor soul.
Hello?
Said the boy with his head in a hole.
I seem to have fallen. I seem to be stuck. But now that you're here, well, I guess I'm in luck.
Oh dear, said the mayor, observing the shoe. The fellow indeed, and he's Flibian too. Young man, I have noticed your dire situation, and please rest assured that I share your frustration. But how can I put this? What can I say? Maybe you'll understand better this way.
Is that music?
I'm busy, dreadfully busy. You've no idea what I have to do. Busy, shockingly busy. Much too busy for you.
Oh, I see.
As soon as the mayor had finished his song, the Flibian doctor came strolling along.
Out of my way!
She said, starting to slide.
If you and your pickle would please step aside. I'm very important. I can't stand and chat.
Well, that's not my pickle. I found it like that. Besides, it so happens I'm noteworthy too. Why, I am the mayor of Flibberoloo.
I'm a cucumber. I see,
Said the doctor.
Then you'll understand without an appointment I can't lend a hand. They're folks with bronchitis. They're kids with the flu.
She said to the mayor of Flibberoloo.
If I'm not mistaken, you're quite busy too.
Well, they talked about schedules, compared daily planners, till finally a voice said,
Please pardon my manners. I don't mean to bug you. I see that you're busy, but being inverted has made me quite dizzy.
The two other Flibians paused for a while. They looked at each other, then said with a smile,
We're busy, dreadfully busy. You've no idea what we have to do. Busy, shockingly busy. Much too busy for you. 'Cause we're busy, dreadfully busy.
oh, it was just dreadful. How could they desert their Flibian friend with his head in the dirt?
That's it then. I'm finished. I'll die here down under. If they would not help me, then who would?
He wondered. But wait, someone else on the road overhead. Would they help a friend beaten up, left for dead? Oh, look, on his head, not a shoe but a pot. Why, this little guy was from Jeopardy Lot. Would he help a Flibian? Certainly not. The boy with the pot saw our friend with the shoe.
Oh, look!
He exclaimed.
He's from Flibberoloo! Why, they think we're garbage. They pelt us with shoes. Why should I care if he's beaten and bruised? But out here in the wild, his chances are slim. If I was in need, would I want help from him?
He looked at our friend, and he looked at the shoe. And then in his heart, he knew what to do.
He may be Flibian, that's plain to see. But God made him special, just like he made me.
So we got him unstuck, and he picked up the shoe, and together they walked back to Flibberoloo, out of the valley and back into town, where he stayed by his side till the doctor was found.
Oh my!
Said the doctor.
He's wearing a pot. The little one there is from Jeopardy Lot. You saved this fellow? You pulled him through it? I don't understand. Tell me, why did you do it?
He has a shoe and I have a pot. But when we look deeper, there's more than we've got. God made us special, and now I can see. If you're special to him, then you're special to me. Love your neighbor. When someone helps you, then you'll understand. When you love your neighbor, loving means friendly
And the mayor cried out with his eyes moist and runny,
I'm touched by his act of goodwill. If this little guy can take care of his brother, when he lives in one town and he in the other, why can't we all try to help one another? And love will surround our fair hill.
Now if you visit the mountains of Fibble, you won't see a shoe or a pot. Instead, they throw flowers and candy to nibble. I bet that you'd like it a lot.
We have to go to the party though.
All right. Well, it seems as some of you have seen it before. That was fun hearing you guys sing. So how many of you have seen that before? How many of you have seen a VeggieTales before? How many of you have never seen a VeggieTales before?
No, you lied.
Okay. Alright. So what parable is that? Michael? The Good Samaritan. Parable of the Good Samaritan. How many of you have heard the parable of the Good Samaritan before? Many of you, right? So what are some of the themes or lessons that you know from the story or that you learned from the video? Caleb.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Lily. Care for your enemies. Good. Anyone else? Any other themes? Michael?
Just because they're different doesn't mean they're bad.
Just because they're different doesn't mean they're bad. Jima?
If you're special to him, you're special to me.
That's right. If you're special to God, you're special to Jeremy. Awesome. So for some of you, the story is very familiar, and some of the other parables that we've talked about are familiar. And sometimes when they get too familiar, then they get a little bit bland, right? And so we're going to try and dig a little bit deeper. It's part of our theme for this year, right? Go deep. And so we are in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. And I want to give you a little bit of background of the story. The video did a great job of telling the main story, but I want to give it to you straight from the Word. So, Jesus is teaching, and one of the experts in the law, so this is somebody who spends his time studying the law and knows it inside and out. And a lot of times these experts come up to Jesus and try and test him. So he comes up and tries to trick him, and he says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Right? So Jesus, pretty smart guy. I don't know why they always try to catch him in these lies, but he asks the question back and says, "What is written in the law, and how do you read it?" So you're the expert in the law, so you tell me, what does it say that you must do to inherit eternal life, and how do you read it? How do you interpret that? What does that mean to you? And so the expert answers, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." And this is found in the Old Testament, but it's also found in Matthew, that Jesus says this is what? What does he call this? The greatest commandment, right? And he says the second is like it. So we talked about this in February when we talked about love, right? And so Jesus says, you are correct. If you do this, then you will live. You answered your own question, right? But this expert in the law doesn't just leave it at that. He has to keep going. And it says, he tries to justify himself. He wants to justify himself. He wants to kind of trick Jesus again and give a little bit more boundaries to this. And he says, "So who is my neighbor?" And this kind of reminded me of one of the stories that Matt shared when Peter said, "Jesus, how many times should I forgive?" 7, right? That's more than 3, which is the law. So I'm going to do double plus 1, 7. And Jesus says, no, 70 times 7, right? Jesus blows him out of the water. And so this man, this expert in law says, "So who is my neighbor?" Right? Expecting a short, curt answer. And Jesus instead tells this